Opposition from Michigan USC puts a screeching halt to the 2.4 billion, that is billion with a B, deal for the Big Ten and that private equity firm, whatever that whole mess is. This from ESPN and Dan Wetzel and Peter Thamel. A private capital plan that would have infused $2.4 billion into the Big Ten athletic departments has been paused in the face of opposition from league members Michigan and USC. UC Investments, which is tied to the pension fund of the University of California, announced Monday that it would wait for unity among conference schools before proceeding. We remain convinced that the unity of the 18 Big Ten conference realignments, wild. 18 Big Ten university members is the key to success of the deal. UC Investments said in a statement, we also recognize that some member institutions need more time to assess the benefits of their participation. UC Investments likewise requires some additional time to complete our due diligence as recent developments unfold and we continue to engage with the conference. What recent developments? What's being said here? What's he mean by recent developments? That is interesting. I don't get that. Interesting. Let me know in the comments what you think the recent developments are. Is it Big Ten? Is it Michigan and USC saying or is there something else going on in the Big Ten? We know Tony Petitti. I think it was Tony Petitti or was it? Anyway, we know the Big Ten conference. The last couple of commissioners have been utterly useless and stupid. You had what's his face from Chicago, who wanted to shut down the Big Ten for over the COVID season. Big Ten Conference Commissioner. Here we go. A list of Big Ten. Oh, yeah, Kevin Warren, Tony Petitti, and then Jim Delaney was. I think it was Jim Delaney was the last actual good commissioner. Kevin Warren was. He's an idiot. Tony Petitti, not much smarter. But so we know the Big Ten has a recent history of not being well run, despite having the greatest rivalry in all of sports in Ohio State and Michigan. But anyway, back to the article. The plan called for the league to spin off a new entity, the Big Ten Enterprises, which would house all league-wide media rights and sponsorship deals in exchange for the $2.4 million. I think that's supposed to be billion. UC Investments would receive a 10% stake in Big Ten Enterprises. The deal would also extend to the league's grant of rights an additional 10 years until 2046. The $2.4 billion would be distributed to the leagues on a tier basis, with all the programs receiving a minimal payment in the $100 million range. Some larger programs would receive higher payouts. Despite being in the middle of a 7-year, $7 billion media rights package that runs through 2030, numerous schools are in need of money due to the soaring operation costs, debt on stadium construction, and renovations and revenue sharing with athletes. The Big Ten itself has as many as 16 schools supported the deal. Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti personally lobbied the schools to back the plan. Yeah, but I'm not trusting you at all. Your predecessor broke that trust, and your handling of the Michigan scandal was not good either. So, Tony, and then you have this mess. I mean, and you have one of the brightest schools in the country, in the University of Michigan, who kick out a lot of lawyers who know this stuff, and they're saying, wait a minute, huh? No. And you could say, well, Northwestern's smarter and they have more academics. Well, Northwestern, they're not worth anything media wise. They don't have equity when it comes to media. They don't. Michigan has 30% is, I would say 40% of 30% of the media flows through Michigan. Whether it's with eyeballs, watching them, putting them on TV, they drive about 30%. Ohio State, I would say 40%. And then you have the Oregons, the USCs with another chunk, and then you have the rest. So there's that. The Big Ten itself has as many as 16 teams. So yeah, I already went out. The UC Investments called the Big Ten's process rigorous and highly professional. Well, what are they gonna say? These bunch of boobs are about to give us we're about to get $2.4 billion for a product that is going to be worth 10 times more in 5 years, let alone who knows what it's going to be worth in another 20 years. Michigan and USC would not waver though. The Board of Regents and Trustees of each school saying the plan was fiscally unsound and the concept of selling a league asset at odds with their fiduciary responsibility. The schools also stated that it would be a band-aid on a larger issue of runaway expenses, with Michigan Regent Mark J. Bernstein dubbing it a payday loan at the meeting last month. I mean, like, this is this is a mess. This is a whole mess and a half. The schools are on Monday. Michigan Regent Jordan Acker told SiriusXM Radio that the school remained opposed and found it nearly impossible to sign a grant of rights extension for 21 years. That is a pretty big thing when you don't know what college football is going to look like 4 or 5 years from now. In response to the news report last week, the league office and 16 schools might proceed with the deal even without Michigan and USC. Acker said the Wolverines would explore all options for the future, including leaving the league and going independent. Michigan was a founding member of the conference in 1896. Which, again, I mentioned this in my last video about this. Michigan did go independent back in 1908. I think it was 1908. They went independent. They told the Big Ten to screw off, and they went independent. And that ended their great rivalry with Chicago University, who is which that's a whole different story that I will tell during the off season, because the stories from that is wild. But so Michigan has gone independent before. Yes, they are a founding member of the Big Ten, but they have not been a Big Ten member their entire time. But anyway, Michigan has a lot of options, Acker said. The possibility of of independence for football is certainly something that has been considered. Not today, but at the end of the grant of rights in 2036. I think there's something you have to think about. Not because we want to leave the Big Ten Conference, but because the commissioner's office has made it enormously clear that they are going to proceed without us. And that would be the end of Michigan, as far as I can see, in the Big Ten Conference. So, I mean, these are strong words. I mean, granted, we're talking about a near over 100-year relationship between Michigan and the Big Ten. I think they rejoined the conference. I think it was from like 1908 to 1916. I think that's when they rejoined the conference. But yeah, that like you're losing almost half of your value with Michigan leaving. The Big Ten cannot be playing with fire like that. The loss of one of Big Ten's most prominent brands, the biggest television draws, and the most successful programs in both football and men's basketball would have a shock in the would have shocked the league and college athletics. Acker noted that the league has repeatedly expanded its ranks, now 18 schools stretching from Southern California to New Jersey, in search of additional revenue, only to continue to need more money. Thus far, neither the Big Ten nor UC Investments have been able to convince the trustees that the new plan could solve the problem. It's not! It's not going to solve the problem. Like, Acker is right. It's essentially putting a band-aid on a bullet hole, is what they're trying to do. You get that influx of cash, you know what those schools are going to do? They're going to put it right towards getting players. And just like that, it's gone, and they got to sell off another 10%. And it is a constant snowball effect until you no longer own any of it. This is not the way to solve the problem. And quite frankly, if you can't manage your finances, that's not Michigan's problem. That's not USC's problem. Figure it out yourselves. I mean, my goodness. The money infusion was believed to be acutely needed for schools who are struggling to pay down debt on new construction, budgeting for direct revenue to athletes. Illinois spent $20 million, or 11.8% of its expenditures in 23 and 24 on debt service. Ohio State laid out $33.7 million, or 11.5% of its budget. At most, schools, the decision on the capital plan fell to the university presidents and athletic directors. Neither USC nor Michigan currently has a president, but both have powerful boards that oversee the operations of the schools. Michigan's 8-person board of regents is publicly elected, which members say requires significant fiduciary responsibility and public accountability. That, they believe, differs from the presence of athletic directors who are often on the job just for a short period of time. UC Investments has not given up on the plan in its statement. It will continue to work with Petitti and the league and allow Big Ten members to evaluate the benefits of our potential investment in Big Ten enterprises. So, I said it in my last video, and I'm going to say it again. Michigan and USC are 110% correct on this. Now, USC, they're more of, well, Ohio State gets that amount of money. Penn State gets that amount of money. Why are we only getting this amount of money? So it's not so much as far as principle, it's more of, I want more money, which means you can be bought. Michigan, on the other hand, they're standing on principle. They are, hold on, no, this doesn't, oh, excuse me. This doesn't make sense. This is not smart. And this essentially creates a snowball effect all the way to the point where you no longer have any equity left in the Big Ten enterprises. You're just in it. And that is a dangerous route to go on. That is dangerous precedent to set in college football. If you cannot figure out your finances, that's on you. You can't be expecting Michigan or USC and their brand to be footing the bill because you don't know how to manage money. Plain and simple. And hey, if they want to go down that route, they can go down that route. But I am 110% behind Michigan on this. And Michigan would not only survive as an independent in football, they would thrive. And and you don't think the ACC sitting there licking their chops like, oh, you're telling me we can get Michigan and Notre Dame? We already got Notre Dame in every sport outside of football. You're telling me we can get we can get Michigan too? So we can spark that basketball rivalry, try to make that a rivalry like we did with Duke and North Carolina. I mean, the possibilities are damn near endless for Michigan should they go independent. And they won't have to deal with a conference that has screwed them over every opportunity. I mean, you date back to why Michigan left the Big Ten in the first place back in the early 1900s. The Big Ten came out with some rules that that you would just look at cross-eyed. One of them being no professional coaches, which every coach is a professional coach at this point. And by professional coach, it means like they had to be they had to be working for the university on a different capacity as well. Whether it be a teacher, whether it be like a professor. So, and Fielding Yost, who was the coach at the time, he was a professional coach. He didn't have any other association with the University of Michigan. He was a businessman by nature. Or by profession, I should say. And then there was a couple other ones that took shot that were directed at Michigan and Fielding Yost. Fielding Yost was not liked by the rest of the Big Ten. Hence why the name on the Big Ten trophy is Stagg, the Chicago head football coach. So yeah, it's quite wild. Quite wild. And then the other and then you go to 1972, I think it was, during with the tie between Ohio State and Michigan. And every other normal year at that time, because at that time, the Big Ten only sent one team to a bowl game, and that was to the Rose Bowl, and it was the Big Ten champ. Well, Michigan and Ohio State, they had the same record. They ended up tying. Ohio State went to the Rose Bowl the year before that. They got trounced by USC. And in this, towards the end of the first half, Michigan's quarterback, I think his name is, I don't remember his name. But, he got hurt. And there was serious concern that if Michigan were to go to the Rose Bowl, they would get blown out again. So the athletic directors met in Chicago. They took a vote, and they voted to send Ohio State to the Rose Bowl over Michigan. And that's when you get the famous line from Bo Schembechler, of this is the lowest day of my athletic career. And it was absolutely wild. And then you have and then you have the whole Harbaugh situation, which we're all read up on that, I would assume. That was absolutely horrific. But yeah, so it's just it's just it's just a relationship that is continuing to frail over the past number of decades. And this could be, if the Big Ten gets really stupid, this could end up being the end of Michigan in the Big Ten. Let me know what you think down below about this whole situation. I'm Dylan Hilder. This is the Dylan Hilder Show. We'll see you in the next one.